So you're doing autumn, but you're also about to tour Australia on a tour named The World is a Vampire. Is that a case of trying to satisfy yourself with new work while also acknowledging one of the songs that plenty of people hope you play?
No, I think for me, back to a spiritual precept is the best place to be spiritually is in full acceptance of the past, in full openness towards the future, and fully present in the present. So when we talk about our past, I mean, we have no fear. You know, uh, I encounter those people at the airport that think haven't done anything good since 1993. You know what I mean? Like, I'm cool with that. I'm long past worrying about that. And I get why some people feel that way. You know, it doesn't really have any impact on my life other than it's part of the bigger conversation. You know, the Pumpkins has always worked with absurdity on certain quasi levels. If you went back and read a lot of the live reviews of the band, particularly in the mid 90s, they would literally start to say, and I read it multiple times, I'm not sure whether this band is celebrating rock and roll or pissing all over it. So when we name a tour The World is a Vampire, I mean, we're in full recognition of all the metadata of the thing.
I was wondering,
You know, because I like to, you know, like, you know, as I walk through the airport, it's like, it's the rat in the cage guy. It's like, you know, it's like, it's Bozo the Clown, you know, he's wearing the big shoes and his head still is shaven. You know what I mean? It's like, to one guy, I'm the rat in the cage guy. So it's all good, you know?
I was wondering whether someone had to twist your arm to go with such a clearly nostalgic title.
No, I love it.
Great.
I love it because it's our, not to be bland, but it's kind of our IP. You know what I mean?
No, what do
Like,
you mean?
it's my line. You know what I mean? I don't see it as nostalgic at all. I think more of it's more like it's like saying calling a movie Spider-Man 7 is nostalgic. It's like, no, it's our fucking shit. You know what I mean? It's like we've it's endured.
Yeah.
It's endured. If you know anything about the band and don't see the absurdity in calling a tour The World is a Vampire, I mean, then you don't know us at all. What's that song? If you don't know me by now, then you never will. I mean, the whole band is the name of the band is a piss take. I mean, think about one of our biggest songs. I literally opened the song by saying, "The world is a vampire." I mean, it's such a fucking crazy, dumb lie. You know? So it's a crazy, dumb tour. You know what I mean? I understand what you're saying, and there's no sensitivity to it. It's more of just like, it's the quasi version of Who Gives a Shit. It's like, it's kind of funny to us.
Gotcha.
And by the way, it was my idea. No one came and said, "Oh, you know, I think this is a good idea."
Great. That's great to hear. I was reading your interview with Kevin Parker, Tame Impala from 2020.
Yeah.
And he asked at the end of that whether you were planning to come out to Australia. And you said at that time, 3 years ago, that no promoter wanted to bring you out. What changed? I mean, I'm glad it changed, but that's fucking...
Well, we found a promoter wanted to bring us out. I can say that the offers over the last few years have been not very enticing. There's been a general thing, and it's been a very interesting thing to navigate. And I'll give you the super short version, otherwise it gets too boring. But somewhere around 2005 to 2010, certain swaths of the music business made a decision, which I like to colloquially refer to as they started to believe I was dead. Not dead, literally in a casket dead, but like it was over. You know what I mean? There was no, to paraphrase a wrestling term, there was no hope spot to come. Or as people like to say, your best days are behind you.
They should listen to the Everlasting Gaze, man. You know I'm not dead. It's right there in the song.
Yeah. And I would get these people that would pull me into various rooms to try to say, look, if you want to make the best of what you still have and haven't squandered, you should get in line and, you know, play this record and do this thing and get on your knees and fillet this particular group of people. To which I, you know, said over and over again, I don't give a shit. That's not who I am. I'll never be that person. And by the way, I'll prove you wrong in good time. And so, yeah, as I like to jokingly say, it's all a revenge play. The resurrection of the Smashing Pumpkins is surprising to many people in the record business or the music business, the promotion business, because they had made those internal calculus decisions that the band no longer had value at the highest levels. So we literally would go and play, to 400,000 people in America. And somebody would call up the Australian promoters and they would offer you the equivalent of as if you were a band that would play to 25% of those people in America. And you'd be like, the data doesn't bear that out. The amount of people who know the band in Australia, the amount of tickets sold, and they would refer to a tour in 2009 and say, well, this, it's like you would get hit with this like data that didn't have anything to do with where the band was today. So thankfully we found somebody who wants to be in business with us, and so far all indications are it's doing very well, and there's a lot of interest. And so it's not a boast. It's like that's pretty much what we thought would happen, and now thankfully it has. So we love playing in Australia. We obviously invested a lot to go down there many times in the 90s because we wanted to play in Australia for the rest of our lives. So we're happy to see that Australia is back on the calendar, because to do some of these big tours the last few years and not have that part of the world as part of what we were doing was very frustrating to us.
Great to hear. On this tour, you're bringing out your wrestling crew to perform between songs, which I believe is the first time you've melded those two worlds of music and wrestling. Why did now feel like the right time to bridge those audiences?
Well, it's that thing of like, it's your world to create. So what would you like to do with it? And I said, well, I'd like to have wrestling involved because it's this other big business that I'm running, but also I'd like it to be featured as part of the show and not be kind of the sideshow. So the great thing on these shows is that the wrestling will be presented between the bands. So usually when you see wrestling at a music festival, it's kind of off in the corner. So the fact it'll be presented as credibly as the music acts, I think it'd be really fun. And that gives the audience a chance to decide whether or not they want to participate. But I think presenting it credibly is part of what's attracted to me. And because I'm in control of some of that, that's something I asked for.
I have to assume there's going to be a ring somewhere separate to the stage so that the wrestlers aren't fucking with the drum techs trying to set up the kit between bands.
No, I mean, generally speaking, the ring will be somewhere equidistant, hopefully between the stages. Obviously every venue is a little bit different, but it'll be presented in a very accessible way. And I think we're also going to have live announcing. So the cool thing is if you're not a fan, you don't know what's happening, you're just sitting in the stands having your Coke, you'll be able to sit back and appreciate it, and hopefully it'll entice you. Wrestling's one of those things that most people who don't like it wouldn't think they would like it, and if they're presented it the right way, particularly in a live setting, you're often surprised how many people really enjoy it, because it's fundamentally designed to be enticing. But because of its wrap in culture, it tends to get disregarded as something too lowbrow. But people need to be reminded that it came out of the carnivals. It's meant to be for everybody.
It certainly is a talking point with this tour. Everyone I've spoken to about it is either excited or bemused by the idea of watching wrestling between sets. So if nothing else, it's a talking point.
The world is a vampire, man. It's like, it's all good. The great thing about it, and the reason I like the way it's presented is, if you let's say, you watch a band and then there's that break and then the wrestling will be happening before the next band starts. Well, if you don't want to watch, just, go pee or go get a Coke or something. Like, no one's going to be forced to sort of deal with it. And I think that's the right way to do it.
And am I correct in thinking that's the first time you have tried to meld the two? I think I heard you say that in the podcast.
Yeah. We're going to do it in a week or so in Mexico City. That'll be the first time we actually sort of put it together. There's a different set of dynamics because we're working with the biggest luchador company in Mexico City, who routinely sells out stadiums in Mexico. So it'll be interesting to see what crowd of theirs comes that is there just for the wrestling, and the music actually becomes part of why the secondary reason that they're there. I think here it's more of a balanced approach where hopefully you're trying to make fans. And look, the NWA has a vast history with Australia. There was a title that was defended in Australia. Some of the greatest stars in America used to go down routinely in the 70s and 80s and perform in Australia. So rekindling the NWA Australian connection is very important to me as well.
Very good. Another subject, you have written more great guitar riffs than just about anyone could ever dream of. How is your relationship with the instrument today? Are you still thrilled by the possibility of what you can pull out of it?
I was writing a riff today, actually, just before I got on the bat phone with you. Yeah, it's interesting because my father died about a year ago, and I'm not quite sure yet. I certainly picked up the guitar because I wanted to play, and I certainly had natural talent, which I would assume I inherited from him. But I can't tell you all these years later, and I've been playing the guitar now over 40 years, whether I started because I really wanted to start it or had something to do with my father. So my relationship to the guitar, I think, is slightly inorganic. I hope that translates the way I mean it. You know what I mean? It's like I'm good at it and I still play. And yeah, I wrote these riffs, but I'm still not sure whether or not I'm a guitar player at heart or more of a songwriter who plays guitar. But when I'm in the right mood for it, I do enjoy it.
I love that story you told in the podcast on the episode around spring times about how your dad was saying at some point early on in the Pumpkins career that he was explaining to you that, you know, what you do on guitar, Billy, it's easy to you, but it's extremely difficult for so many other people. And you just kind of try to get that across. And I think it was kind of a breakthrough moment for you where you're like, oh, maybe I am kind of good at this. And he had noticed that you were good at it.
Yeah, I mean, it came to me so easy, and it's probably the only thing that's ever come to me easy out of everything I've ever tried. Wrestling promoter, author, poet, everything's always been a struggle for me. But for some reason, guitar just came really easy, you know. And look, we've all been to school where, you know, the guy was really good at basketball or jazz trumpet, you know, and you kind of stand back and say, how is that possible? Like, it shouldn't happen. And I remember when I had only been playing 6 months in school, within 6 months, I went from can't play a note to I was the best guitar player in my school. And the guitar players in my school treated me actually with suspicion, like I was cheating or I'd done some deal with the devil or something, you know. And I'm still friends with one of the guys, I still see him occasionally. And we laugh about it because they just couldn't fathom how in 6 months I was better than guys who'd been playing for 3 or 4 years and took lessons and all that stuff. And they were like poking around, like, what was the secret? And I was like, I don't know. It just kind of happened, you know?
And to confirm, did you do a deal with the devil?
I would like to have done a deal with the devil because my life would have gone a lot easier than it has. I think it's patently obvious given my social standing at different times that I certainly did not do a deal with the devil. I would have had an easier go of it.
Looking back, is it fair to describe Pistachio Medley as one of your biggest flexes as a guitarist?
It definitely was a flex. It definitely was a flex. And, you know, what's even funnier is it's such a flex that people still to this day ask us to write songs based off the riffs. Like, why did you never finish, you know, song 42 of the Pistachio Medley? My favorite one of all time, though, since we're talking about it, was we put out a song called Glow around 2008. It was just a standalone single. And my fans or our fans accused me of ripping off one of the riffs from the Pistachio Medley. And I was like, how do you rip off your own fucking riff? That's how stupid the cult of that flex is. I'll leave it to you to explain to your readers if you want to include it what that fucking thing is, but it definitely was a flex.
Yeah, it's pure showboating because it's saying, here's this huge amount of riffs and jams that we've amassed and largely discarded. Like, here's a bit of it, discard, just for a long time. It's amazing.
Let me tell you a bigger flex that wasn't a flex, though. When I was working with Tony Iommi on his solo album, circa 98 or 99, somewhere around there, we were trying to put some music together. And Tony said, well, I've got this tape if you want to listen to it. And maybe there's one of these riffs. And I went upstairs into an office or something, and I listened to Tony Iommi's personal riff tape. Now, you want to talk about a flex. I mean, 100 of Tony's riffs that he hadn't turned into songs. It was fucking unbelievable. And I still kick myself because I wish I had my own recording of it. Even if I sneakily I love Tony so much I couldn't do that to him, but I wish I still had that tape.
Cosmic Sabbath, one-on-one.
Fuck yeah, the best, the best.
We touched on this earlier, circling back to it. How has becoming a father changed how you think about and approach your work?
Uh, it's more just time, you know, like if I'm going to put my energy into this, I have to be able to justify it to myself and by extension, my children, of why I'm away. My children are at an age now where they're starting to notice that I'm gone. Like when I'm going, they're like, why are you leaving? So yeah, it has to be worth it for me. We're still on the positive side of that, but it's at times an uneasy balance.
There's clips that I've seen online where you're performing, I'm thinking of an acoustic performance of Tonight Tonight, and your kids are dancing around beside you, and you just look so happy and at peace. What does it mean for you to play music for them?
I honestly, my attraction is more that they're involved in the world of the band, and it's the same for wrestling. It's like that's the way I was raised. It's like you were just part of what happened. And with my father, I mean, I was around from everything from band practices to drug deals. So not that my children are involved in drug deals, but they're just part of the world, and then they can choose what they find interesting and not interesting about it. I'm not the type of parent that wants to separate my life. Like their life is my life and my life is their life. And I think that's the way we like to run things around here.
And it goes as far as, I believe, sometimes bringing them on stage in front of your audience during shows, which is a bold move, which I don't see too many internationally famous rock stars doing at any level in their career, which I really love and admire. What spurs that decision?
I don't know. I just wanted to see what it's like. Not because I wanted to become musicians. It's like, it's a rare opportunity. It's not every day you can stand up there in front of 15,000 people and have their eyes on you.
Mm.
I like binary decisions, right? It's like if I put you through something really intense, then you have to make a binary decision, which is, do you like it or don't you like it? And so far, my children are more attracted to it than repulsed by it. So I think that's interesting. Now, whether that serves them down the road or they look back and say, I can't believe you brought me up on stage and I can't believe I allowed myself to go up there. I will tell you that my daughter, you literally have to grab her by the ankles to keep her from running on stage. And she keeps telling her mother, no, daddy wants me up there. I need to be up there. I'm supposed to be part of the show.
Yeah. Wow, that's fantastic. Are they coming out to Australia with you?
No, unfortunately, no. You know, because my children are homeschooled, so it gets into like schedules and stuff like that. So, and we just spent a few days at Disneyland, and I was really surprised because coming home, I was like, I expected them to be kind of bummed out, like, oh, back to home, and they were like, they couldn't wait to get home. And I said, you like home better than Disneyland? And they were like, yeah, we'd rather be at home. And I told that to a friend, and they said, yeah, it's because you already live at fucking Disneyland. You know what I mean? That's your life. You know what I mean? Like, you don't get it. Like, your home is Disneyland. So.
Well, what is that room that you seem to be sitting on the ground in? Where are you exactly? What are you?
Oh, I'm actually in my bedroom, my boudoir. I live in a 1920s estate home, which is fully renovated. Sort of a labor of love living in one of these types of places.